good morning or afternoon, whenever you watch this video. Greetings to you all, people of Earth, because I don't know where you are. Amazingly, as I've done these videos for 2 or 3, 4 years now, they've gone much farther abroad than I would have ever imagined. I've gotten messages from people in Wales and South America and all the way back east in New England and the southeastern part of the United States and down into California. So wherever you're at, whether it's here in Bellevue, Washington, or Oregon, or back east, or overseas, grace and peace to you. I'm Reverend Rich. I'm pastor here at Bellevue First United Methodist Church. And we are concluding this morning our discussion on a church for, and then fill in the blank. And we've talked about what it means to be a church for the planet, for the poor, for, oh my gosh, what was the first one? I can't even remember. Church for people. You would think I'd remember that one. But we are concluding with being a church for peace and talking about what it means as followers of Jesus, as communities of faith, to be churches for peace. And what does that mean? And as we begin, I want to point out that peace is a complex subject. And there is no way in the short time we'll have together, and it was long last week, so I promised to keep this one short, that we can talk about all the different nuances of peace and all the different types of peace. You know, there is personal peace, there's peace in a family unit, a peace in relationships, and things like that. But when I chose this as a worship subject, what came to mind is a t-shirt I used to have that my home church, and this was after I left my home church. I was off in ministry, but it's my parents', or was my parents' home church. And the youth group there created these lovely light blue t-shirts, and in white print it said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are children of God." And I thought that was a lovely sentiment, and it's one of the readings that we'll read on Sunday. It's from Matthew, and obviously it's from Jesus, but it's an interesting thing because I wonder how many of our faith communities, how many of us as Christians believe that our work is to be peacemakers. And how does that play out? What does that mean in terms of us as individuals? What does that mean for us in terms of the role we play within our families, in our communities? Like, what does it actually mean to be a peacemaker? So last week, when we were talking about being a church for the poor, one of the things we discovered is that Jesus and largely the whole of the Bible, but especially Jesus and in the New Testament, they understood poverty very differently than we do here in the United States with our capitalism and our whole economic structure, where we believe poverty to be a personal failure. In the Bible, and especially according to Jesus and those who came after, that poverty is a communal failure. It is a failure of neighbors. So, for instance, if I am poor, according to the nice American economic script that most of us are raised with, it's because I'm lazy and I haven't put in effort in the right place. It's my failure. In Jesus' understanding and the Christian understanding, poverty is a failure of those around the poor person because we haven't been compassionate enough. That, in essence, it's a community failure. It's a failure of those who surround the person who's in poverty. And we are not being generous and compassionate enough that there is an abundance. I mean, the American way is to try to convince everyone that every resource is scarce, right? And you have to grab it and keep it. And if you get a lot of it, you're a winner. The biblical understanding of the world is that there is abundance, that God has blessed us with so much that there shouldn't be poverty. And in fact, this is true. I mean, study after study has pointed out that there is enough for everybody. It's just that it's not equally distributed. So anyway, that's a little recap of last week, and a powerful reminder that if the person next to you, whoever that might be, is impoverished in any way, whether it be hope or food or clothes or any of that is our responsibility. So talking about peace, though, it's kind of the exact opposite, where peace by and large begins, to quote the song, it begins with me. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. And my mind went to the passage, and I'm going to read it for you. The passage from the Gospel of Luke, and this is in the 22nd chapter. It's right at when Jesus is betrayed and arrested. And he had just received the kiss from Judas that kind of identified him. When those with him saw what was happening, and so this is all the disciples and the followers are seeing Jesus about to be arrested, they said, "Master, shall we fight?" And one of them took a swing at the chief priest's servant and cut off his right ear. Jesus said, "Let them be, even in this." And then touching the servant's ear, he healed him. Now, we could say, like, what does that have to do with peace directly? And some people would argue, not much. But I think it has a tremendous amount to do with peace and being a person of peace and being a people of peace. And part of this is a commentary that to follow Jesus, to follow the Prince of Peace, we can't use the means of those who oppose the ways of peace and the ways of Jesus. That was a confusing sentence. But in essence, what Jesus was saying, I mean, he told his followers to put down their weapons, that they have no use and no place and no purpose in following the way of Jesus, of being a disciple. And that might come as a shock to some people, because if you look at what's happening here in the United States, we have a large segment of Christians who are very armed and somehow have decided that the proper way of following Jesus is to be armed to the teeth and to shoot first and ask questions later. But this passage, even when Jesus' life was on the line, he told his followers to put away the weapons and went so far as to actually heal those who were involved with his arrest and eventual crucifixion. And that's a very different understanding of Jesus and peace than the "I've got my guns, now I'm going to church" kind of Christian. And sorry if that makes some people mad, but those two ideas are not compatible whatsoever. And so part of the understanding here is that And Friedrich Nietzsche said this. That's a philosopher for those who don't know. But Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said this as well, and I'm going to paraphrase both of them, but that you have to be very, very careful that when you resist the oppressors, when you oppose the oppressors, that if you use the same instruments, the same tools, the same weapons, that you very quickly become the oppressor yourself. And I think this is what Jesus was after when he told his followers to put down their weapons and he healed the ear of the chief scribe's servant, was that he recognized that as soon as all the followers of Jesus picked up their swords, then they're no different from the ones who would eventually crucify Jesus, right? That they would very quickly become people of violence, people who had no problem oppressing others, even though they themselves had been oppressed. And this was actually, in fact, part of Malcolm X's faith discovery, his faith journey, was realizing that you can't use the same tools as the oppressors to defeat oppression. All of this is a very roundabout way of saying that when we talk about peace, especially when we talk about relational peace, peace within our communities, peace within our country, that we have to be a people or a person of peace to begin with. We have to resist the temptations to pick up the weapons, whether they be, not many of us are going to pick up a sword and lop somebody's ear off, but these days a lot of the weapons are words and video and media and concepts, and we have to be very, very careful how we talk and how we think and the language we use, and even how we talk about those that, let's just say, maybe oppose things that we are for and are for things we oppose, that we would label perhaps as enemy. So the peace journey does begin with us, that if we want peaceful communities, we have to be a people of peace. And to do that, we have to seek peace, we have to enact peace, and we have to be very careful of the kinds of things we pick up. So my question for us all is, what does it mean to be a church for peace? That's the point of this message in this worship series, is to kind of explore what it means. And as I think about the churches I've been involved with, both as a member or a layperson or as a pastor, there weren't a lot who felt that their tasks were to be peacemakers. And in part of that is, I think we are just now living in a time where that call is really sounding loudly and clearly. I think for us here in Bellevue and for the other churches I pastor, the call to be peacemakers means to be brave, to stand up and to share a different value system, and more importantly, to embody a different value system, a value system of peace, a value system of tolerance, where we make room for people at the table, even those who don't like us, right? That's because otherwise we're following the script of something else and somebody else. And so to be a church of peace, a church for peace, I think means being in relationship with people that we don't agree with, and making sure that we are public in the embodiment of our values, and that our communities can very quickly and very easily say, we understand what those people are preaching, even if we're not preaching with words. St. Francis, right? So I think our task is especially these days, and everything that's happening in the world, in Ukraine, in Iran, in our communities, to really spend the time feeding ourselves and being fed in the faith, the things that make for peace within us, and then allow that to call us forward as we step into the public arena, or the social arena, like social media. So I'm just going to end there. Last week was really long, and I'll end on that call and that question. So I hope you are able to find some peace in every day. Everyone is worth having a little peace in their lives. So go in peace, dear friends. Even if you hated everything that I said today, I still wish peace upon you, and wish you nothing but joy and happiness in your life. And I'll see everyone next week. We're beginning a worship series in a time in this church where we're talking about our money story. So should be fun, should be challenging, and so I will see everyone soon. Shalom to you, and amen.